Well, good evening, everybody. Before we start the meeting proper, it falls on me to make the announcement of the death of Muriel Long. Many of you may know of Muriel Long, and Muriel Long was a member of Finch Hampstead South for over 20 years, and in fact in 2002 she was chairman of the council. So I would ask you now if you'd please stand for a minute's silence. Thank you. Well, again, good evening, everybody. Could I ask for apologies, please?
The following are apologies: Councillor Hellier-Simons, Councillor Howe, Councillor Magetts, Councillor Pittock, Councillor Ross.
Thank you very much. Are there any other apologies that anybody knows that need to be recorded? If not, yes, Chris.
Councillor King, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, minutes of the previous meeting. Are you all happy that they're a true record of that meeting and they can be signed as correct? Anybody who has any points to raise on that, if they could raise their hand. Otherwise, I will sign them. Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Halsall.
Mr. Mayor, company director, holding company.
Okay, thank you very much. John Kaiser, please.
I'm also a non-executive director on the housing company.
And Councillor Lindsay. Sorry, Lindsay Ferris. Familiarity.
Lindsay was who I was named after for some point. I'm also non-executive director of Loddon Homes Limited.
Thank you. And Ulla Crane-Clark.
Thank you. Non-executive director of Loddon Homes.
Thank you. And Stuart Munro.
Non-executive director of WBC Holdings.
Smith.
And Wayne Smith.
Same for me.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no Mayor's announcements other than to bring to your attention the leaflet that's been distributed to you about the Mayor's event on the 28th of March. I think most of you, if not all of you, have received an email from me giving you details. Be very pleased to see as many of you as can to be there. Thank you very much. Okay, we have public question time. Do we have any? Yes, we do. We have 30 minutes for public question time. The first to speak is Mr. Ian Shenton to ask a question of Gregor Murray.
Good evening. My question is, I'm very pleased that the Council has declared a climate emergency. I'm delighted to see in some literature that £50 million will be spent on reducing our carbon emissions. And that is set to be approved at tonight's meeting as part of the Council's budget. So specifically, how will this money be used?
Councillor Barry. I will remind all members that the answers to these questions can be no longer than 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
The committed investment of £50 million over the next 3 years, subject to approval at this council, will allow some of the identified actions within the initial climate emergency action plan to progress. To significantly reduce the borough's carbon dioxide emissions within 10 years, the council will require the implementation of substantial actions. The council efforts will focus on the key emitting sectors: energy, domestic gas and transport. The assigned funding will be allocated over the next 3 years to the following projects: development of infrastructure for generation of renewable energy. These will take shape in the form of solar farms, which will either feed into a battery or grid arrangement. Reduction of energy consumption in council-owned assets. These will see a wide range of energy efficiency projects at existing properties to reduce our energy demand. These include installing LED lighting, cavity wall and loft insulation, boiler controls. These are envisaged to deliver demonstrable energy saving benefit. Investment in energy reduction schemes to support residents and small businesses to fund energy efficiency and retrofitting projects. Investment in public rights of way, cycle networks, greenways, new foot and cycle structures and other non-motorised routes throughout the borough to support mode shift to active and sustainable modes of transport. Enhancement of transport infrastructure in the borough to expand and improve the use of public transport. Improvement in waste schemes to increase recycling and food waste collection. Implementation of a rolling programme of capital projects aimed at enhancing biodiversity of the various sites and our other assets.
Mr Shenton, do you have a supplementary question?
I do.
When we look through last year's capital spending programme, a lot of that money was already in there before you declared a climate emergency. For example, food waste collection had £20,000 in the budget for the coming financial year, but under the customer and locality section this year, the same amount is under climate emergency. Cobby Beach Park and Ride was under last year's budget for £2.7 million to be spent in the coming financial year in customer and localities. The same amount has been transferred to climate emergency section of this year's budget. Likewise, greenways were down for £1 million in the coming financial year, and in this year's budget it's actually less, at £874,000 under climate emergency. There are many examples of this, and I believe it's a bit misleading. So how is this 50 million for the climate emergency when it looks like it's old money with a new name?
Thank you.
Well, actually, almost half of the money that is being spent on climate emergency is new money. So the money that we're putting into solar farms, the money that we're putting into our Green Bank project is all new money coming in, wasn't in the budget last year, wasn't in any of the budgets beforehand. What we have done, though, is very deliberately brought together under one roof and one remit all of the programmes and projects that we believe will influence and help bring down our carbon footprint and our carbon budget. Yes, some of these are existing programmes. The council has already been working on things like greenways and cycle routes, but it makes sense to have them all in one place, under one officer group, to make sure that it can be monitored effectively and that we can make sure that going forward we're recording all of the net saving that we're making in our carbon budget, not just small fractions of it here and there.
Thank you. Chris Wallace, you have a question to John Kaiser.
Good evening. The Housing Revenue Account reserves states that the reserve has to be a minimum of 5% of gross spend, with the current recommended minimal level of reserves at 0.8 million. Could you explain why a reserve of less than this minimum, 0.6 and 0.7, is being authorised? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Yeah, you rightly point out the recommended minimum levels of reserves is approximately 0.8, and the proposed levels for 2021 just below this at 0.6. But it rises to over 1 million over the next 3 years. The reason for the reduction in the reserves is 2020-21 is because we're repayment of a significant tranche of the HRA debt. And what that means is the HRA debt is the second largest debt this council has, which is about £85 million that we took to buy our own council houses back so we could retain all of the rents and use that money to keep the homes to keep them at decent standards. Before, half of our council rent was going out of the borough, going somewhere else. In addition, I mean, there are other issues which will increase the debt, but it looks like at the end of the year we're going to have an underspend, which is increasingly likely. I mean, the minimum level is a guideline recommended by the council's CFO, and if he is comfortable with the budget proposal, given the option is available to us. Of course, the other thing that hasn't really helped is the fact that, in real terms, council house rents have probably dropped over the last 4 years by about 14%. So we've had less income as well.
Thank you very much. Ms Wallace, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. The reduction in the reserves and the need to increase borrowing to 2.3 million for major repairs seems to have been caused by the HRA stripped of assets, resulting in a loss of dwelling rent income of more than £2 million per annum for the years shown in the budget. It would appear that most of these assets have been transferred free of charge to WHL, with the profits from new builds being returned to the general fund. At the same time that HRA, as you've said, is still servicing loans taken out in 2012. As the HRA is a ring-fence fund by law, the Housing Act of 1985, can you show how this use of HRA assets funds can be regarded as legal? Thank you.
I'm not quite sure where you got your information from, but it is a ring-fence fund, and we haven't been taking any money out of it, or I don't know about it taking any money out of it. I think you'll find that the decrease in the fund is pretty much around the reduction in the rent that we've been collecting over the last 4 years, which again is nearly a 15% reduction in the rent roll that we would have normally expected under normal circumstances.
Thank you.
Thank you, John, but I'll have to disagree with you.
Thank you.
If you can find an example of that and you bring it to me, I'm quite prepared to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We come on to the next item, which is petitions. Do we have any petitions to serve? No? Thank you very much. At this point, I would ask if you wish to stay, members of the public, you are quite welcome to do so in the public gallery. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming along. Okay, we come on to item 66 on the agenda, which is the medium-term financial plan and associated reports. There's a maximum period of 1.5 hours to debate this item, and group leaders are allowed to speak for up to 12 minutes each. I believe that John Horsall, you wish to propose this? Thank you very much. Sorry, you're seconding, are you? Thank you, John. Right. Would you like to move the 4 reports, please, John?
Yes, sir. Before I do, can I just make a short announcement? It's not actually that short. Since the publication of the Treasury Management Strategy and medium-term financial plan documents included in tonight's agenda, I have the following amendments to highlight. 1. We have now received the Council tax precepts for Winnersh Parish and the Fire Authority. These have now been included in the relevant pages of the medium-term financial plan. 2. The elements of the capital funding in the Treasury Management Strategy and medium-term financial plan have been corrected to reflect the latest figures. This includes an increase in developer funding and use of capital reserves, which means an 8 million reduction in borrowing. There is no change to the total funding and no change to the planned capital programme, which is still 517 million over the next 3 years. Following the changes just mentioned, all affected tables in the Treasury Management Strategy and medium-term financial plan have been restated. This also corrects some casting anomalies. Updated figures and tables have been tabled at the meeting for information. Following the receipt of the council tax precepts for all the parish councils, the fire authority and the police, the council tax amounts for 2021 for each of the council tax band and parish are set out in the Revenue Budget and Statutory Resolution, Appendix A, as shown in the two follow in the agenda pack. I ask the Council to resolve to agree the recommendations set out in the Treasury Management Strategy as adjusted by the tabled amendments. I also ask the Council to resolve to agree the recommendations set out in the medium-term financial plan as adjusted by the tabled amendments. As set out in the recommendation, I also ask the Council to resolve to agree the revenue budget and statutory resolution for the 2021 financial year. That's the announcement I have to make, sir.
Thank you. Would you like to continue?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last May, I was honoured that you elected me Leader of the Council. It has been a huge pleasure to work with our Chief Executive, the Executive Directors, the Officer team and Councillors. In 8 months, we have covered a lot of ground and launched some important initiatives. Mr. Mayor, it gives me great pleasure to propose this budget put before you this evening. The formulation of this year's budget has involved a level of transparency and collaboration like no other. The opposition in overview and scrutiny has been able to input their comments and concerns throughout the process, which has significantly benefited from this approach. Long may it continue. I commend both John Kaiser and Graham Ebers for taking this significant and positive step. Some members give me the feeling that they are confused between the revenue and capital account. There are those who have long experience of private sector IFRS, indeed lecture others, and assume that public sector conventions are the same. They are not. Grant funding sometimes determines categorisation, i.e. if the grant says it's capital, and if the grant funding says it's revenue. Nevertheless, our fiscal rules are to maintain our revenue reserves. Indeed, this budget sees them increased back to over 10 million, which we regard as prudent. Our council tax proposal is at 1.99%, below inflation of 2.7%. In addition, we have taken advantage of the 2%, which is ring-fenced for adult social care. It is instructive to note that whilst most town and parish precept increases are in line with inflation or below, Liberal-controlled Early Town Council is pushing their precept up by 10.4%, making it the second highest precept in the borough. Twyford Parish Council, 25%, and Woking Town Council increasing its precept by 4.5%. Woodley Town Council's precept of 112.88, the lowest precept for Woodley since 2008-9, is still suffering from the 114.65 precept inherited in 214.15. After 40 years, I believe, of a Liberal administration. A too familiar tale, I feel. The medium-term financial plan should be read in conjunction with the community vision and corporate delivery plan, which I'll be proposing shortly. Our central mission is to keep our residents safe, secure and happy, and to provide the very best services we can. We are all, of course, acutely aware of the pressures we've faced in children's services over the past years, with an increase of 164% in children on protection plans and 44% increase in children in care. This budget not only provides the resource needed to meet these unavoidable costs, but provides investment to enable our community to receive a children's services offer rated as good for the first time. The revenue budget also adds an additional 4.8 million in adult services for increasing elderly population. It also contains an additional capital financing cost that will enable 9 million extra borrowing for the resurfacing of our roads. Our proposed capital programme is a budget which invests 185 million in roads and transportation, which includes tackling congestion on our roads. It is a budget which invests 50 million on climate emergency. It is a budget which invests over 70 million into improving services for essential frontline children's services, adult social care and environmental facilities across the borough. It is also a capital programme that provides over 200 million on regenerating our budget, providing homes and enabling the council to generate valuable income streams from its expanding commercial agenda. Capital borrowing is asset-backed. As a local authority, we have recourse to funds from Treasury Fixed for the duration at the time when the debt is contracted. As we had originally predicted, debt peaks in 2022-23, but declines rapidly thereafter. This debt is not to fund spending, but to purchase assets which remain and appreciate, and generates much-needed income for services. We have not predicted any asset sales. One of our largest debt is due for our purchasing of social housing, whose asset value is many times the debt we incurred and allows us to retain all of the rents we collect from our residents to be used to maintain their homes to decent standards and finance additional social homes. Woking consistently ranks among the top 10 most desirable places to live in the country. It is known as the Silicon Valley of the UK. It is one of the lowest areas of deprivation, which is a credit to the efficacy of the council, its officers and members. Yet its success raises concerns. Having a low level of deprivation results in the lowest funding of any unitary in the UK for both the council and one of the lowest for GP surgeries, if not the lowest. We have the dubious honour of being, I understand, one of the highest vehicle concentrations per household in the UK. Being a very desirable place to live, we are a prime target for developers. Whilst there is always talk of a slowdown, it seems there's no real problem with selling houses at a premium in the borough. The only protected land is a small amount of green belt in the northern parishes. The high retail value of houses compared to the average income within the borough drives the government to instruct us to build some 800 homes per annum for the foreseeable future, when ONS growth of the borough is expected to be around 450. Mr Mayor, I fundamentally disagree with the government's approach and agree with our residents we should be obliged to take a very much lower level of housing, perhaps even lower than the ONS.
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
Growth.
Yes.
Okay. The Council's Code of Conduct, Chapter 9, Appendix B, Section 2, says that makes it clear that members must declare membership of any body, one of whose principal purposes includes the influence of public opinion or policy. Councillor Halsall is currently registered as a director of the Campaign to Protect Rural Wokingham Limited, and he's the only person listed as administrator of the CPRW Facebook page. The CPRW has been campaigning, including the spending of money, to influence public opinion in the borough. Councillor Halsall is the only person with significant control of the limited company. This is a personal interest, and it is a personal interest which has not been declared on Councillor Halsall's declaration of interest, nor has it been declared in any meeting where any discussion of the plan has arisen. So Councillor Halsall has to declare this. He hasn't declared it. I don't know if it's ignorance of the rules or if he's ignoring the rules, and I'm prepared to take his word on which one it is. I think whichever one it is, he's fallen short of the standards required of a leader of the council, and he should resign. In the short term, I would like you to make a ruling on what exactly he has to declare. If you would like the evidence to support what I've just said, because it is a serious thing I've just said, I'm happy to give you my pack here.
Thank you. Councillor Halsall, do you wish to make a comment at this stage?
Shall I continue my speech and then make a comment thereafter?
I think it'd be best
because it really wasn't a point of order on the speech.
Okay.
Any local plan, Andy, you don't need to.
Yes, carry on.
Excuse me, I'd like a point of order.
For the sake of...
please, from our officers here on this point, because I'm confused one way or the other, so I'd like to have it clarified.
For the sake of a good order, I'd like to declare an interest in CPRW, which is correct.
Okay.
It has been dormant for some considerable time, but it is correct that I'm a director of CPRW Limited.
Can we just take one moment on this, please? Okay. Councillor Halsall, would you like to continue and we will discuss later? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any local plan which is more than 3 years... Sorry, start again. Any local plan which is more than 5 years old is considered by National Planning Policy Framework to be out of date. As ours is more than 5 years old, even though we continue to deliver more homes than neighbouring authorities, developers can claim that we do not have a plan and therefore appeal to planning inspectors that the development that they are promoting should be allowed. We have a veritable epidemic of appeals. To fight them, we've engaged the top planning chambers, which is both very expensive and very consumptive of officers and executive members' time. We have published a draft local plan for consultation. It is based upon meeting a lower figure than the standard method, which we feel we can justify. It protects the green belt and the countryside by concentrating development in only a few places across the borough, and proposes a new garden town at Graiseley, which would be designed and built to cutting-edge environmental standards, with sustainable transport links into Reading and a massive investment in facilities. To not adhere to the NPPF and not having a plan means that we will be having planning by appeal, developers putting houses where they want, and government taking our planning department into special measures, as has happened in Liberal-controlled South Oxfordshire. We will get more houses, not less, with no infrastructure. I do not like the situation we're in, but unless Parliament relents, we must do the best we can with the tools we have. Consequent upon the development, but not necessarily completely due to it, we have congestion which is plaguing every resident's lives. We need several billions and many years to build the capacity we need. Without that, all we can do is to optimise our use of the existing network. We are completing 5 major new roads, which when finished will enable travel across the borough, avoiding Wokingham town centre. We are acquiring the tools so that an intelligent transport system will keep traffic moving as well as helping the environment. We will install responsive traffic light systems with smart software, allowing signals to work intelligently based on traffic demand. Residents should notice reduced delays and improved journey times thanks to a combination of cameras and sensors within the network. Mr. Mayor, climate change is an issue for everybody. We have declared a climate emergency. The recently approved plan starts to make significant inroads into our ambitions to achieve carbon neutrality. As a borough, we cannot solve it, but we can make sure that we are doing everything we can to play our part in its resolution, including generating clean, renewable energy. The Council has published its first plan, and this budget sees that plan put into action. In the future, this plan will be modified, taking into account of the measurement that we will be doing and the results of the actions that we are taking. It will, of course, introduce other actions that will come to light. This is very new to us and to others, but we are determined to be at the leading edge, as I'm sure residents would wish us to be. It's too important an issue for our future and our children's future. It is an ambitious but robust budget. It achieves the careful balancing of safeguarding the vulnerable in our community and delivering services to everybody. The revenue budget is a surplus and a capital budget reflects our ambitions. Mr. Mayor, not only have we invested all this resource in much needed services and facilities for our community, we've maintained a strong and stable financial platform through our continued excellent stewardship of the Council's finances. And I owe a huge debt of gratitude to my Deputy Leader and Leader Member of Finance, John Kaiser, for doing this. Our proposed general fund balance is restored to a healthy position in excess of 10 million. We have a fully funded 3-year capital programme and we are ranked in the top 20 of all the upper tier authorities in the country in terms of our overall financial standing. We are not without our significant financial challenges and we remain the lowest funded unitary authority in the country. However, we remain financially responsible and well managed. This should not prevent us across all parties lobbying for a fair funding deal in next year's long-term settlement and getting the level of funding the community deserves. Mr. Mayor, I am delighted, notwithstanding the interruption, to present this budget to the Chamber, and a budget which provides the much-needed investment into our community whilst being a budget proposal that is safe, sound and responsible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. The point raised by Councillor Croy and the subsequent confusion raised by Councillor Ferris will be discussed with the monitoring officer after this meeting. So if you can bear with us on that one, but it will be discussed. Thank you. John Kaiser, you have indicated that you're a seconder. Do you wish to speak now or do you reserve the right?
Yes, if I could, Mr. Mayor. I haven't got an awful lot to say. I'd just say that I hope we're set to approve a budget tonight, which is a residents' budget, which focuses on spending on the things that matter to our residents, and as such, protecting our environment and also cutting congestion and taking care of the vulnerable in the borough. But I would also like to say I think it's probably the most transparent budget we've seen for some years, and I would like to thank those members from across the political spectrum for your challenges on our assertions and our conclusions that we made in this budget. We learnt a lot, and hopefully they feel that they had a contribution. This was done over a period of some 9 months, and it was a completely open book situation. Both Graham Ebers and myself gave up any time that they wanted, explained our way through it. So I'm hoping that they feel that they've had a reasonable input into this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak on this? While we're taking details of the names, could I ask Councillor Lindsay Ferris if he would like to speak on this? You also have 12 minutes in which to speak.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor. Bit I've added, I put an addendum at the beginning of my speech. It's quote, "What a chaotic budget in Tory-controlled Wokingham. All these errors and an additional £75 million of debt has been found in the last minute." You check the figures, there's a 75 million difference. What's going on? For the first time in nearly 20 years, there is a serious challenge to the current Conservative administration. Local residents have an opportunity to choose an alternative way forward. Tonight, I want to present a Liberal Democrat vision and rationale for the future across Wokingham Borough. The reasons we need change is because this current Conservative administration has acted more like cash-strapped amateur property speculators who've racked up £700 million of debt than a council administration who are there to provide services for their residents. The Conservatives have become complacent and arrogant in their approach to residents. Instead of providing services that residents want, they are providing service the council wants to provide and in the way they want to provide them. Whenever the council has been found to have done things incorrectly, for example, when they lost the Court of Appeal decision to Hare Sheeplands, or when they lost a vital employment tribunal, their response has been, "Oh, it was an exceptional or bizarre result." This aloof response is not acceptable. The council administration needs to learn from its mistakes and to act in a more appropriate manner in the future. Instead, the administration is in denial. This has to change for the sake of our residents. This Conservative council rarely says sorry. The Liberal Democrats would put residents first. The Tories have no forward thinking and overall strategy. Many proposals being presented are reactions to events. For example, Woking Borough Council closed both the Paddocks and Rose Street car parks in Wokingham as part of the Woking Town regeneration. Little or no thought was given to how suitable car parking capacity could be provided in the town centre area. Now in 2020, Woking Borough Council has been forced to buy back Denmark Street car park area, sold off by the previous Conservative administration. This is hardly joined up planning, and at what cost to the council tax paying residents? There has been months of upheaval which has severely impacted local businesses and residents alike. The Conservative administration has treated residents' petitions presented in this council chamber over the past couple of years with utter disdain. I am sure residents from Shinfield, Barkham and those supporting Hare Hat Sheeplands remember how they were treated and in fact ignored by this Conservative administration. This will change under a Liberal Democrat-led administration. The budget being presented by the Conservatives tonight will be the budgets the Liberal Democrats would have to use should there be a change of control at Council in May. It is recognised that the overall budget, a 3.99% increase in council tax, made up of 1.99 council tax and 2% adult social care precept, is the highest possible without a referendum. We have no issue with this. However, the Liberal Democrats have a different set of priorities and would use supplementary estimates to move the financial resources around within the budget areas to enable an alternative set of priorities to be introduced. A number of these priorities will be presented by my colleagues in the Council chamber here tonight. Regarding the capital programme, it's like a curate's egg, good in part, but unworkable in others. There are individual lines in the capital programme the Liberal Democrat group can support, in fact have pressed for. This includes the £640,000 for the Polehampton Library in Twyford, although in order to fully complete and equip this, more money may be required, and the £250,000 for the Montague Park Community Facility and many others. A significant part of the roads programme has already been agreed and is in the process of being built, and many more areas have cross-party support. However, there are a number of projects the Liberal Democrats would like to introduce which have not been included in this budget. We have a vision of a better run administration which listens to our residents to enable us to provide the services they want within our budget constraints. Our vision: the culture of the council must change. We would aim to make Woking Borough Council more resident-focused, one of the best, if not the best, local authority in England. Liberal Democrats will support an ethical position on finance which is open and available to scrutiny. Be in the forefront of tackling environmental matters, including the climate emergency, not just sound bites, but thought through plans in a structured, coordinated, quantifiable manner to achieve real results. We rebuild our Children's Services Department so that it is better able to assist our local children and schools, with a future aim of making this one of the best in the country. We would focus the council on providing the right number and type of homes for our local people. This includes the provision of truly affordable homes. Our focus will be on 1, 2, 3 bedroom homes for local families and single people, and the provision of 1 and 2 bedroom bungalows for our older residents to move into so that they are able to downsize and stay in our area. We'd establish Wokingham Borough as a vibrant centre for the arts and culture, the better provision of adult social services and improved support for carers. We believe we are ready, open and able to take on the running of this council. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Croy, please.
Thank you. You said at the beginning that all the group leaders had 12 minutes. I take it that was an error.
I can't allow you 12 minutes.
I can probably give you an extra 8 off the top of my head if I can find my speech. Okay. Excuse me. I'd like to start by saying thank you very much, Graham and the team, for putting together, again, such a comprehensive pack. And I sometimes feel that Graham and we as a borough must be very much like a person in front of a giant wind fan. We have to brace our feet and lean into the wind in order to stay upright against the forces of central government. And every now and again, for no apparent reason, the fan controller changes the speed of the fan or moves it around a bit to keep us off balance. The local government spending review delayed by a year. The new homes bonus for authorities like ours, it's been cut. Increased statutory requirements for adult social care, but no consummate increase in funding. That's there as well. 100% business rate retention dropped to 75% and then dropped altogether. The will we, won't we threat of a negative revenue support grant. It hasn't arrived, but it hasn't quite gone away either. The public sector loan board increasing the interest rates. It goes on. It's almost like the Tory government doesn't care about local government or at worst actually hates local government, and worse may yet be to come. The Conservative manifesto promised to allow the use of developer contributions to subsidise the sales of homes built by developers. It would be a very Tory way of doing things. Contributions from developers used not to improve local infrastructure, but to allow developers to keep more of their cash. These are contributions that should be spent on improving local infrastructure, and these are contributions which underpin our forward capital funding. There must be a very real concern that the developer contribution element of the capital funding on page 102, which includes the borrowing against the contributions as well as the contributions themselves, will find itself subject to some random whimsy of the Johnson government and spirited away out of our future plan. Given the way local government has been treated by the Tories over the last 9 years, I'd be very surprised if this did not happen. It's clear to me that a priority for the council, for this council, must be to lobby government to ensure that this does not happen and we keep all of our developer contributions. We must also lobby government over the size of the local authority funding cake. It's all very well to talk about fair funding, but the simple fact is the cake is much smaller than it was. It's much smaller than it needs to be. It's one of the mantras of this authority, and I'm pleased to hear Councillor Halsall repeat it tonight, that we're the lowest funded unitary authority in the country. You know, we all know to recite that. But this doesn't quite capture the whole picture, does it? We also need to remind ourselves, cuts in our funding give tax cuts to corporations and the rich. So cuts in our funding give tax cuts to corporations and the rich. So when you campaign for Redwood or a Morley or a May, that is what many of you have campaigned for. You've campaigned for cuts in our funding. You've campaigned to give tax cuts to corporations and the rich. This budget is a result of your cuts, and I'll be voting against it. I'm running out of time. Don't even get me started on the rebanding exercise or the rebadging exercise that passes as climate emergency spending. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murray, Gregor Murray, please.
Mr Mayor, as of this morning, 287 local authorities across Britain have declared a climate emergency. To date, few of those councils have declared a financial budget for their climate emergency action plans. Of the ones that have, Oxford has committed £1 million of operational funding and 18 million of capital investment to address climate emergency. Northumberland have committed 10 million in its medium-term financial plan to investing in renewable energy schemes and climate change projects. Bradford Council have allocated almost 25 million of investment to tackle climate change, including £1 million for waste and recycling schemes for businesses. Hampshire have so far allocated £1 million to their plan to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. Mr Mayor, the New Economic Foundation, in an article on the 20th of January, suggests that governments need to allocate between 2.5% and 5% of their spending to climate emergency if we're to stand a chance of reaching carbon neutral by 2050. This budget shows Woking Borough Council committing almost 10% of our medium-term financial plan to climate emergency projects and to drastically reducing our carbon footprint. It also, sensibly, brings together in one place all the projects and programmes that can impact on our carbon footprint, giving us greater visibility and control over the work of the Council in this crucial focus area. Over the next 3 years, this budget includes £2 million for improving our public rights of way, making it easier for residents to walk around the borough. There's a further £2 million investment in our cycle network, coupled with £2.2 million for greenways, giving our residents safe and, in many cases, traffic-free means to walk and cycle between the towns and communities and move around our borough. This budget introduces completely incrementally £18 million in entirely new spend for clean energy generation, giving us more control over our energy generation, storage and distribution. There's £6 million for park and ride schemes that will reduce traffic in some of our busiest roads and improve air quality as an additional benefit. Coupled with this, we're committing £13 million for managing and reducing congestion and resulting pollution in our borough by easing traffic flow and moving vehicles around our borough more efficiently. We're investing in increasing biodiversity, and I've asked for a particular focus in increasing the bee population across our borough because they're so essential to life. There's also continued investment in recycling as we work to identify new items we can reuse and recycle and aim for 70% of our waste being recycled with zero waste sent to landfill. We're also entirely new investing into energy reduction programs for our residents and small to medium-sized businesses as we work towards setting up our Green Bank scheme, which will help residents take ownership of their own carbon footprint and improve their energy efficiency. Working with experts at Reading University, we'll be measuring and monitoring the impact of all of those programme items we'll have on our carbon footprint over the next decade, and we are fully committed to ensuring that we get the maximum return for our carbon investment. Mr Mayor, this budget is a bold statement of intent from Woking Borough Council. It sets us apart as true leaders in the climate emergency and taking the type of dramatic action required to achieve...
Could you come to a close? Final
statement, Mr Mayor. And achieve our carbon neutrality by 2030. We're putting our money where our mouth is. This is a budget for change, a plan for action, an investment in the long-term future of our community, our environment and our planet. I'm delighted to present this budget to our residents.
Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubay.
There are so many things I would like to say about this budget, but we have so little time to do so. I should begin by saying that I have great concerns about the amount of borrowing in this budget. The outstanding debt at Woking Borough Council is expected to reach £678 million this year. All the way through these documents, I see that the amount of money... All the way through these documents, the amount of money expected to be borrowed seems to be much more than previous years. It feels like our Conservative leadership is borrowing like tomorrow will never come without a suitable or achievable plan to pay off these debts. On one hand, I see the council leaders protesting about the numbers of houses being built and saying that something will be done to tackle this. But yet many of the projects in this budget are highly dependent on the future of house building from developer contributions. The new shops, roads, leisure centres cannot be delivered without consistent levels of SIL contributions over the next few years. So what happened to the costly enough is enough consultation on housing that was sent out across the borough last year? Was that really money spent wisely? It looks like we need the housing to have any hope of controlling this debt. In the meantime, our council tax is being put up by the maximum allowed level to 3.99% this year. I know we have to do that just to tread water. This evening, I heard John Halsall having a pop at Woking Town Council's 4.5%. Well, that actually, we've had to do that because Woking Borough Council went back on their plan, plan to clean the marketplace, and Woking Borough Council had to pick up the difference. Also, we've had to pay for extra maintenance on Elms Field. And that 4.5% amounts to only 5p for a Band B property per week. So it's not really what I'm seeing here. If you look at what services are being squeezed, we have been underfunding children's services for years. This has revealed itself as needing an over £2 million overspend this year. With reduced support services, we are seeing more youth crime, antisocial behaviour in our towns, and one of our biggest problems that the police have to deal with is domestic violence, which has had no support from Woking Borough Council at all this year. The £50 million for climate emergency is laughable. All that seems to happen is that the highways projects and food waste bins have been dealt, which would normally be dealt under different areas in previous years, have seemed to be moved into the heading of climate change. This 50 million, as we've seen, is not new money. There's a little bit for solar farms, but the rest of it is other projects that have just been moved in that the council is already doing.
If you think £18 million is a little bit of money, I really feel sorry that you're going to be running the council.
We have not interrupted you. Will you kindly stay quiet?
Order. Sorry, order. Can I ask that you allow the speaker to finish? Can I ask you to finish, Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubay? Thank you. Councillor Caldoran, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And thanks to all the officers involved in drawing up this budget, these reports and the MTFP. I can see it's a lot of hard work in a challenging environment. What struck me reading through these reports was the confirmation that the decade of austerity is continuing and deepening. There's no new dawn, no new start, just more of the same, deliberately enforced misery. You can see the evidence of Tory austerity in these pages, especially children's services. Cuts save some money, but then the effects of those cuts cause deeper hardship, and then we have to spend even more to try and solve the problems that's been created. It's a false economy, playing with lives like there's some widget on a production line. We are not a business, and people are not a product. I can also see in these documents the frustration from officers over the uncertainty of future plans for local authority funding as the government drags its heels over making a decision. To add to that uncertainty, as Councillor Croy mentioned, there's no mention whatsoever in the new government's First Homes policy, which involves robbing money from our Section 106 receipts to allow a few to buy homes at a discount at the cost of the many who need social rent housing. Moving on to a few specifics. I note on page 89 of the MTFP that the section Regeneration of Towns, plural. As someone who lives in Earley and represents both Earley and Woodley, might I respectfully request that the singular is used here, considering that every single pound of the £31 million spending mentioned within it is allocated for Wokingham Town Centre. You might be ignoring the rest of the borough, but you really should refrain from rubbing our noses in it. I also note, which has already been mentioned, the fake £50 million budget for dealing with the climate emergency. 4 days after the fake £50 million plan was announced, the Woking Borough Conservative Facebook page was advertising the spending of £24 million over 3 years. And now we hear it's £18 million. So, were you misleading residents then? Now? Then? Who knows? It's really bad. Most of this budget is just rebadged spending that has long been planned going back years. And if you look at the MTFPs, you can see it. The figures are identical. You're just using the same figures and rebadging them. Apart from the ones that you've cut, like greenways. So as a budget for dealing with the climate emergency, there's nothing concrete in it at all, unless you count the spending on roads. It is wholly misleading. At Budget Council last year, the Lib Dem group brought forward a budget amendment. We abstained on it due to the lack of time we had to peruse it. But it was mercilessly ripped apart by Conservative members due to an assumed lack of facts and figures to explain how the proposed changes could be achieved. To those members who rubbish that amendment, I can only ask you to display some consistency and join me in voting down this budget too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Charlotte Haytham-Taylor, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm delighted to be proposing the recommendations tonight for a further regeneration to unlock the full potential of our borough. The regeneration this council has so boldly and successfully undertaken has brought in new jobs, will deliver 270 new homes, including 22 new ones for key workers in this very town, and new retail and leisure offered, as well as stimulating the local economy. It has injected new life into Wokingham Town so that it's fit for today and will be long into the future. This Conservative administration is not just stopping in Wokingham, unlike what Carl has just suggested, but is also investing throughout all of the borough, as you'll see from both the capital programme and the MTFP budget submission. In my portfolio, we're looking at other opportunities in the borough, and one of these is in Twyford, where we will be investing £640,000 in providing a new library and community facility, revitalising this area at the same time as bringing back into full use an old Victorian schoolhouse. We should be optimistic about this borough's future because retailers want to come here and sign up to this council. They see that we offer a bright future for their businesses to thrive. To date, 86% of our income is committed through our leases for the town centre, and we are forecasting 100%. Many of these businesses have signed up before building works have been completed, and this is bucking the national trend. This shows confidence that the market has in our council and this regeneration scheme, as we're not just another cloned high street, but a vibrant market town. We should also be proud because local independent shops are also taking out agreements with us for new shops. This is one of our key aims for this regeneration too. We are forecasting that in 2022, our income from rents will exceed the financing costs of debt, which means that we'll be actively paying off the debt from that time onwards. We are forecasting nil debt by 2036 from the regeneration scheme, when we will be left with income in today's figures of £4.4 million and an asset value of £96 million at today's values. This income can be ploughed back into supporting vital services in and around the borough. In the next 3 years, we'll continue to invest a further £39.5 million in the last phase of Wokingham Town Centre regeneration at Carnival, which includes a new library, swimming pool, leisure facilities, spa, performance space, 55 new 1- and 2-bedroom homes, Imogen, and much, much more besides. This Conservative Council invests in its community to ensure that residents continue to thrive, have great opportunities locally, and can look forward to a positive future.
Thank you very much. Councillor Prue-Bray, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good evening. The Conservatives have for many years tried to squeeze a quart from a pint pot in children's services. And some of us longer-serving councillors will remember children's services being run so far into the ground that it went into special measures. Things are no longer as bad as that, but the service is not out of the woods yet. Although our permanent director and her new team are making a difference, there will be an overspend again this year, with clear signs of continued under-budgeting, while the upward demand pressure continues. Now, this year, children's services will have a budget increase of 4.3 million, but 1.7 million of that is going on reviewing just about everything they do in order to save money in the future. This may work, but it is by no means guaranteed or risk-free, and the Lib Dems will be keeping a close eye on progress. We believe the service has been severely underfunded for a long time and are committed to making sure it has the right level of funding in the future, so that the council can provide the right level of service to the borough's children and the borough's schools. The budget shows some signs of a shift towards more preventative services, which the Lib Dems welcome. We would have liked to see more focus on youth work as a preventative measure as well. Last year, we proposed a budget amendment to improve access to mental health services for children and young people. It was rejected by the Conservatives, but I note there is at least some extra money going towards that this year. The Lib Dems believe another way to save money and provide more resilient services would be to work with other local authorities, but there's no sign in the budget that this is happening, at least not yet. Home to school transport is an area where the Conservatives have failed to get to grips with repeated substantial overspends. The Council's home to school transport policy dates from 2015 and has a separate policy for post-16s, despite the fact that you can't leave education at 16 anymore. The Lib Dems are particularly concerned about the impact of this post-16 policy on children with special educational needs and disabilities. We see the review of this area as extremely important. More focus on prevention, better CAMS provision, working with other councils and restructuring home to school transport are all things we would actively pursue if we were running the council. There is not enough time in a 3-minute speech to talk about schools and school funding. Our schools are still underfunded, especially as regards SEND pupils, and that is still the fault of the Conservatives, but at a national level rather than local. The Lib Dems will continue to campaign for better funding for schools.
Thank you. Councillor Rachel Burgess, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First, I'd like to echo my colleagues' comments in thanks for the many hours of hard work that have gone into producing these budget documents from the officers. What is writ large here is that this council faces an ever more arduous task when setting its budget. Thanks to austerity, this council's expenditure has fallen by over 30% since 2010. That's a third of our budget gone. And as always, the effect of these cuts fall on those who can least afford to pay the price. I see it all the time in casework in Norreys. whether it is the anxious parent who told me how worried she was about the lack of appropriate special educational needs provision at her autistic child's new secondary school, or the elderly council tenant who had stopped washing as she was scared of falling when getting in and out of the bath, but there was no budget for a walk-in shower. The risks facing the council's finances due to this ongoing punishing Tory austerity are huge and unprecedented. There is no end in sight for the ideology that is austerity. There is a distinct possibility of future reductions in grants, and of course there are the additional pressures on services that austerity creates in the first place. It's a vicious cycle. This is plain to see in the pressures on social care placements and the demand for children's services that have caused an overspend in the current year budget. Moving to capital plans, threaded through all these documents is the repeated statement that the Council will be spending £50 million on the climate emergency. This is utterly misleading to residents, as we have heard. First, most of this spend was already planned for. It is not new, as eloquently put by a resident earlier and others. One item of detail that won't make the headline that's included in here is the purchase of waste receptacles, hardly a new and innovative plan to address the climate emergency. Moreover, the expenditure includes £13 million on investments in future road building. Over a quarter of the much-touted £50 million for the climate emergency is on building roads. It's ludicrous. And second, without any hint of a carbon budget to go with this capital budget, this is just meaningless headline grabbing by the Conservatives, who have their eyes firmly fixed on 7th of May. There are also other hints in the detail that reveal the Executive's lack of ambition here. The climate emergency budget is described on page 54 as working towards becoming a carbon neutral council. Can I remind the Executive this Council approved a motion in July that committed to achieving a carbon neutral Woking Borough by 2030, not a carbon neutral council. And addressing energy efficiency in council-owned properties, as Councillor Murray alluded to earlier, will make a tiny dent in our carbon in the borough. This climate emergency hoodwinking is also contained in the Treasury Management Strategy. There's reference here to the Audit Committee approval of that. Members should be aware that that vote was actually tied between for and against. It was only approved because the Chair was Conservative and had a casting vote, hardly a ringing endorsement. The Conservative Party continue to damage our country, whether it's their pitiful record on the environment or the starvation of our communities of the funds that they need in order to thrive. The Conservatives continue to make ordinary people's lives harder and harder, even in wealthy Wokingham.
Thank you. Councillor Pauline Jorgensen, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We recognise that roads and transport are vitally important in our borough and that congestion is a major issue for residents. We're committed to keeping the borough moving and will achieve this through an unprecedented £185 million investment in highways and transport over the next 3 years. We plan to invest over £46 million in 2020-21, including a record £29 million for new roads and a further £10 million on highways maintenance and improvements to highways infrastructure. In 2019, Woking Borough Council fixed 4,236 potholes, and we did another 520 in January. We can't resurface roads at the moment because of the weather, but we're acting very quickly to actually deal with potholes until we can. In the last couple of months, the weather becomes wetter and colder. The level of road defects has increased as a result. We immediately reacted to demand and this year set aside an extra £500,000 pothole contingency fund to ensure that current budget levels do not stop us fixing them. We also recognise that a lot of our roads are experiencing high levels of wear and tear, and in response we've got an ambitious surfacing and repairs plan. In this budget, we've more than doubled our highway structural maintenance programme and will spend more than £16.28 million over the next 3 years, an increase of nearly 130% from £7.14 million. In addition, there is £6 million for unplanned maintenance in the operational budget for doing immediate potholes. We continue to innovate. This year, we introduced a new map-based reporting system, which greatly enhances the response time for reported faults with road surfaces, lights and bollards. It's now much easier for the public to report potholes to us, and once reported non-urgent small potholes below a metre square are simply fixed directly by the contractor within 28 days. For urgent and dangerous faults, I still encourage people to phone at the emergency service to fix dangerous faults, which must be done much quicker than that. We've introduced a jet patcher and infrared machines which allow temporary repairs to quickly make potholes safe. These are mobile units and avoid road closures. We've just embarked on an ambitious plan to tackle congestion and allocated £13 million in an MTFP over the next 3 years to improve this. Funding to start this work now has been approved at Executive. We will start a 3-year programme of junction improvements to aid traffic flow and help get residents to work, school and out and about more easily. These will include improved technology of real-time monitoring and redirection of traffic through variable message signs and next-gen intelligent traffic signals. We will also review traffic-sensitive routes to enable us to restrict peak hour working on our key roads. We're investing in projects and campaigns to help people get out of their cars and onto other forms of transport, through Mode Shift Stars to encourage more children to cycle to work or scoot to school. Cycle or scoot to school. We're also delivering a range of sustainable travel facilities across the borough, including spending £1 million on a new greenway. We're providing further cycleway improvements and have secured significant funding from government to provide additional park and ride facilities across the borough. Our £124 million major road building programme is well established, with works having commenced on site for many of them, as has been mentioned previously. The lower early way dualling system is the first to have been completed. It was ahead of programme and under budget. The first section of the North Working Distributor Road...
Councillor Yorgerson, you are out of time.
From London Road to Warren House Road opens this month, and work on the Alberfield Cross Relief Road is on programme.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Once again, the Showcase Cinema roundabout has flooded, causing considerable traffic congestion and delay for residents. Officers are engaging with DEFRA to request grant funding for surface water management to cover parts of the borough. Dealing with this must now become a priority for the council. It certainly will be when the Liberal Democrats take control in May. This council's new budget allows for an extra member of staff to coordinate working towards carbon neutrality by 2030. I get that other officers are also involved with this, but I repeat the question I raised at overview and scrutiny. Is one new member of staff enough? When the Liberal Democrats gain control of the council, we will set up a specific climate emergency overview and scrutiny committee. It is important to help the council achieve its goal of being carbon neutral by 2030. I really don't see why the ruling group can't agree to this now. We welcome the council's commitment to spend £50 million on the climate emergency in the next few years. But this wasn't new money as residents might expect. Almost all of the money has been previously earmarked to be spent in previous budgets. It's a rebranding exercise by the Conservatives. Liberal Democrats will protect the weekly collection of household rubbish. The Conservatives looked at changing this a couple of years ago. Liberal Democrats will only make this change if it is what residents tell us that they want. And as I've said many times before, Liberal Democrats will investigate introducing the curbside collection of glass. That's what residents are telling us that they want. We were delighted when the Conservatives adopted our policy to introduce a collection of food waste. The scheme is working well. We look at delivering food waste bags with blue bags in the spring every year in an attempt to encourage even more participation in the scheme. We'll fight to keep all mature trees in the borough. Developers will have to have compelling reasons if they want to remove a single mature tree. We'll do all we can to ensure the devastation of cutting down of mature trees in Elmsfield does not happen again in this borough. We'll also work with officers to designate Chalfont Woods and other areas across the borough as a green space to save them in perpetuity from developers. This will save the areas from developers, including the local Conservatives. Liberal Democrats will work with officers to provide a new Silverdale Centre at Maiden Early School, along with a brand new classroom block. This will ensure the longevity of
Councillor Jones, you're out of time.
Can I just finish like you allowed the others to finish? So finally, I would like to thank John Kaiser for organising the overview and scrutiny of the budget. It was handled extremely well by himself and by several senior officers. And we're delighted that the leadership listened to us and other people like Guy Granderson, who wanted a proper overview and scrutiny of the budget.
Councillor Jones, I really must ask you to finish.
I can
Thank you very
confirm
much.
that that will happen again next year when the Liberal Democrats are in control.
Thank you very much. Can I just mention that do try to keep within your time, because all you're doing, you're stealing the time that your other colleagues would have to speak. So I'll ask Councillor Munro, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to talk a little bit about the economy in the context of this budget and some of the things that we've done. Imogen was rather scathing about our investment portfolio, despite the fact we, at scrutiny and Odeon scrutiny, took them through the investments that we've made. However, in the last quarter of 2019, the national economy flatlined with zero growth for the quarter. Overall, for the calendar year as a whole, growth was 1.4%, which, although relatively low and impacted by a range of international factors, I'm sure we know what those are, this compared favourably with the majority of EU countries. The recent resignation of Chancellor Sajid Javid and his replacement with Rishi Sunak is thought to signal a possible relaxation of the Treasury stronghold on spending, especially with regards to investing in the regions to equalise the economy. The wider implications for the public sector are likely to be clearer following the imminent budget, though this may or may not be delayed slightly, I believe. Here at Wokingham, our investment portfolio continues to provide a very healthy return in line with our plans and is now showing a contribution equivalent of about 2% council tax. What's not to like about that? I'm also very pleased that we could acquire the part of Denmark Street car park and the offices, providing a return to the residents of an invaluable local facility, as was witnessed by the recent very large petition we received. Yep. Blackhall Studios yesterday was proud to announce initial agreement with the University of Reading for Blackhall to develop the largest purpose-built film studio and digital creative hub complex in the UK. A new state-of-the-art film studios incorporating extensive purpose-built digital production facilities represents the first UK investment for one of the leading US studios based in Atlanta. Blackhall Studios has already produced some worldwide successes, including current box office hit Jumanji, I can't really pronounce it, Jumanji, The Next Level, etc. With the creative industry in the UK losing out to European destinations due to lack of available space, this new facility is a significant boost to the UK-wide creative economy and shows the confidence in the UK. The new studios are ideally located to make the most of the recreative corridor being developed throughout the Thames Valley. It's set to employ 3,000 people, including 1,500 directly on site, and contribute over 500 million per year to UK PLC. What's not to like about that in our borough? Finally, I'd like to just mention that we are talking to business. The inaugural meeting held on the 3rd of February for the Wokingham Borough Business Group, and the next meeting is planned for the 29th of April, and a further meeting in June. Still looking to grow attendance slightly, but the meeting was well received. As a direct result, the Chief Executive and Chair of the group had a follow-up meeting with the CEO Intersurgical, one of the borough's most fastest-growing companies and largest employers. Actions to improve communication and engagement are in hand. And finally,
in fairness, Councillor Munro, I must ask you to finish.
A further Fit for Business event will be held on Wednesday, the 4th of March, at Thames Valley Science Park. One of the key things will be climate emergency. 30 business delegates have registered for this event to date.
Councillor Sarah Kerr, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Arts and culture are a huge part of the enrichment of our society, making us healthier and happier. An active participation in the arts improves mental and physical well-being, increases the employability of people by developing confidence, resilience and soft skills, makes us more socially cohesive by developing tolerance and empathy, and makes us more engaging and engaged. Creative industries have been growing at twice the rate of the economy and account for more than 5% of the UK's economy at the moment, which is bigger than the automotive, life sciences, aerospace, oil and gas sectors combined. Local businesses have indicated to this council that they desire an improved cultural offer in order to support a vibrant economy, creating a strong sense of place, attract inward investment and support creative opportunities. It's also key to promoting the regeneration of the borough. This council, through its corporate plan, promises to engage and involve our communities through arts and culture. I've been heavily involved in the creation of a strategy on this through the cross-party working group. As someone who's worked in the creative industry for a number of years, I must air my frustration at what is missing in this budget. Financial commitment to what this council says it is committed to. We are hiring 2 new members of staff to fulfil our commitment to arts and culture, but not finding any money for them. In order to exist, they will have to raise enough extra income to cover the cost of employing them before they do anything else. This doesn't come across as a commitment to arts and culture. Should the Liberal Democrats be running this council, we would demonstrate that we are serious about this. We would also consider using the Property Investment Group to provide workspace for creative startups, providing careers and opportunities to develop local creative talent. Given the number of students studying creative subjects at the local university and colleges, we would give them a reason to stay in the area, help develop our economy and boost our creative offering, as well as provide a return on investment for this council. Another aspect of health and wellbeing is the environment. We are very supportive of the climate emergency and this council's commitment to become carbon neutral by 2030 across the borough. What is missing, though, from the rhetoric in this budget is our commitment to tackling air pollution across the borough. At the moment, this council measures ambient levels of nitrogen dioxide through diffusion tubes. They take a monthly average reading and have a margin of error of 25%. It's just not good enough. There are 2 continual monitors in the whole borough, but that is all we do. This council measures nothing else, especially not particulates, which account for 4 in 5 deaths from air pollution. Given that air pollution is the #1 environmental cause of premature death in this world, this is really worrying. We live in a borough where cancer is the biggest killer, and we have above average numbers of children hospitalised with respiratory tract infections. The climate emergency is really important, but so is tackling air pollution. We would invest in properly monitoring air pollution, especially particulates, and use this information to inform our residents and come up with effective solutions, such as no idling zones, amongst many others in key areas, that will make us a healthier, happier borough. And just to reiterate, safe, secure and happy is what you said.
Thank you. Ulla Corinne Clark, please.
Children's services are facing a number of challenges which these budget proposals seek to address, such as increasing numbers of children and young people in need of help and support, rising costs of placements for looked after children, the need to recruit experienced and qualified frontline staff, embedding a programme of change that will get Wokingham to a judgment of good. We have budgeted an increase of £500,000 for home to school transport and £100,000 for a review of the same. We have also put in £245,000 to increase capacity in SEND. The biggest priority for my service is to keep children safe. These budget proposals will ensure we have proper levels of staffing that will ensure children and young people are properly protected. The budget increases in the MTFP will give us the opportunity to invest our services and deliver improvements of the sort we all want. We are working with our partners within the Community Safety Partnership to address issues relating to crime, disorder, antisocial behaviour and substance misuse. Priorities for the partnership include antisocial behaviour and domestic abuse. These 2 priorities are especially key in relation to children and young people. Adverse childhood experiences affect children and young people in every spectrum of their life. In conclusion, the budget proposals for children's services for 2021 are made so as to meet the rising demands in both social care and SEND. If approved, they will place the Directorate on a firm footing to address the current deficits and challenges. During 2021, there will be an overall increase in resources amounting to nearly £5.5 million. This level of increase demonstrates the Conservative Group's commitment to the children, young people and families of Wokingham, and Wokingham Borough, not to be forgotten. And I warmly commend this to you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Paul Fishwick, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The roads and transport section of the budget, totalling £184.7 million over 3 years, sounds good, and is 36% of the capital budget. Whilst this is supported, when one looks back at similar budgets over the past few years, you get the feeling of repeated promises to deliver, especially in the new roads area. For example, Lower Early Way was scheduled for completion in February 2018. Actual completion, November 2019, 21 months late. Windish Relief Road Phase 2, scheduled for completion February 2018. Not even properly started yet. Therefore, this is not all new money, but funding that hasn't been spent in previous years being rolled forward due to delays. Delays that have frustrated our residents in getting these promised new roads and infrastructure constructed on time. That would have alleviated the impact from additional traffic due to the extensive house building, more traffic congestion leading to increased pollution and poor air quality. The Liberal Democrats would have planned for this essential infrastructure in advance to mitigate the problems that we now have. Whilst the concept of tackling climate change is fully supported, the 50 million, 10% of the capital programme, is a wish list of projects that have not yet been modelled to see what carbon savings they may achieve, are partly a repeat of last year's budget, but relabelled, such as Winnersh Triangle Parkway, changes to the Park and Ride car park, which is an interesting one, as it's increased in cost from 0.6 million to 3.1 million. Much of the managing congestion and pollution was again in previous years' budgets and is now relabelled under climate emergency. But tonight the Executive have been asked to approve a supplementary budget of 180,000 to enable officers to progress this project so that it is not delayed until late 2020-21. The Liberal Democrats would have programmed these measures related to congestion and pollution at the same time as the new roads programme. On page 64 it states, issuing over 7,000 works orders for routine highway repairs, repeated call-outs to the same location is not an efficient way of spending funding when one visit would suffice. For example, I know of 14 call-outs to the same 1 square metre area of carriageway that has been marked up for permanent repair twice, but never done. Not good use of limited council taxpayers' money. The Liberal Democrats will look at the surface treatment programme to avoid wasting money on repeated visits. Councillor Jorgensen has said tonight more resources have been put into pothole repairs recently. I'm still waiting for a 2-hour urgency fix reported on Monday. The Conservatives should spend less time patting themselves on the back and acknowledge that improvements are needed. Thank you.
Councillor Parry Bath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. As usual, I have an exciting forward-looking budget programme of our leisure facilities and smart environmental initiatives to report. Bulmesh Leisure Centre, a brand new £14.5 million facility, will be ready by the end of April for our residents to enjoy. The site boasts a 6-lane, 25-metre swimming pool, also innovative pool with movable floor so larger groups of ages and abilities can use it, a larger gym plus a live well gym for residents living with long-term health conditions, Mr. Mayor. It will also benefit from a forecourt, sports hall and additional studio and a cafe. Following the opening of the Bulmesh Leisure Centre, we will commence work to rebuild Carnival Leisure Centre later in the summer. The refurbishment of the Loddon Valley Leisure Centre, that cost £2 million makeover. The centre has an increased range of sports facilities for our residents to enjoy. Cantley Park enhancement. This £1.6 million project will bring significant benefits to the large number of residents, both sports users and families using the facilities. Enhanced facilities will include a 3G pitch, additional car parking, improvement to grass pitches and sports pavilion artificial cricket pitch and destination play area. Fly tipping, Mr. Mayor. This causes an ugly blight on our everyday lives. It damages wildlife, spoils scenery and costs the taxpayer to to have it removed. Our residents deserve better. I will therefore adopt a zero-tolerance approach to fly tipping and prosecute whenever we have sufficient evidence. We have now developed a new fly tipping strategy and comprehensive action plans to prevent fly tipping, respond quickly to incidents, take enforcement action, and provide information on everybody's responsibilities for the management and disposal of their waste. To aid this work, some CCTV cameras have been installed to monitor the culprits, catch them, and punish them. Public Protection Partnership, Mr. Mayor, as you're aware, that we have in place at the moment is a shared service. Our current services are under review, and as we are committed to enhancing our environmental health and licensing services, I would very much like to move more of the services activity in-house to ensure that our borough residents get a better and better service. Food waste and recycling.
Councillor Bath, you're out of time, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to add that I fully support this budget and commend this to the Council Chamber.
Councillor Maria G, please.
Thank you. On page 113 of your council agenda, the Treasury Management Strategy, about which I'm speaking, has a very pretty graph proposing that the council will be moving from peak debt on its general account of around 600 million to being debt-free in 30 years. In addition to the 600 million existing debt in 2023, the council is planning, according to the graph, to take out additional loans of 3.8 million a year, which are also to be paid back. That's 114 million in total for borrowing for capital projects until 2052-53, a level I find astoundingly low. To illustrate, in 2022-23, the 10-year vision for capital expenditure is planned to be 177 million, and in that year we plan to borrow an additional 143 million to fund it. Take a look at 23-24. It's on page 104 of the medium-term financial plan if you want to check. It shows that we plan to invest another 177 million in capital projects, but what borrowing will, apparently, only be 3.8 million. To return to this sort of level of borrowing, we would have to halt just about every scheme in our capital programme and basically do nothing much at all beyond repairing buildings and roads. Well, assuming we do borrow 3.8 million each year, by 2052-53, the council will have paid off the existing 600 million and the additional 114 million, an average repayment of almost 24 million a year. I'll be 93 and will hope to be able to celebrate this auspicious debt-free day, if it ever comes. We have been assured that the cash required to pay borrowings of more than 700 million will materialise. I have to say I would be more confident that this was so if I could see some figures that show exactly where this money is coming from. Even with the 137 million developer contributions at the end of 22-23 coming in, there's more than 570 million pounds in the repayment schedule for which there is no proper explanation. That's more than £500 million black hole to be filled. Perhaps some of the 250,000 trees the council would be planting are magic money trees. To sum up, we find it very hard to believe that either the forecast for how much we will need to borrow or the forecast for when and how we can pay off our borrowing is rooted in reality. We need manageable debt and realistic forecasts that allow sensible planning to take place for our residents. We will have a lot of work to do to put the finances of this council on an even keel. Therefore, we cannot support the Treasury Management Strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jim Fruin, please.
Thank you. It's my first budget meeting, so tonight I've heard a number of party political statements and party point scoring. At the start of the debate, and mentioned during the debate, this was an open budget exercise with opportunity for all to have input, and input was given. That level of collaboration is not evident tonight. This budget is about people's lives. Those people are our residents, our families, our friends, our neighbours, and yes, even us. Despite this many point scoring raised during this debate, we all know that apart from the three old-timers sat at the back here, the three grumpy men in the back row, the vote will go by party. I guess that's the way it is. What a place Wokingham could be if we all sat in this chamber tonight worked as one team. I actually believe that's what our residents want, need and expect from us, but we're not doing it. One final point. The proposed film studio, known as Shinfield Wood, has just announced its first blockbuster. Will be Gridlock on Black Boy Roundabout, with a sequel being Nightmare on Junction 11. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David Hare, Councillor.
I want to speak about adult social care, an often forgotten but essential part of our services to the people of Wokingham. First of all, I want to thank and encourage Matt Pope, his leadership team, and all those who work in adult social care for their hard work, commitment to improve alongside a desire to serve and enable the people of Wokingham. Most of us, many of us, don't expect to use these services, but conversely, many of us unfortunately have to use the services at some time in our lives. So we want the best that we can get. And yes, we're starting to improve and enable a positive transaction from children to adult services, so that individuals are prepared for the change and the change is a gradual process rather than a cliff edge. But we as Liberal Democrats want to invest further in this area of work, and with better transition is also our pledge to support carers in their work with adult children, increasing adult fostering and adult respite, so that carers get a break from the relentless pressure of care. All carers on the front line, and some of us know it only too well, need a chance to breathe and recover, be they working with adult dependents of any age. We will seek to support this. I welcome the fact that 100,000 has been given to assist children and adolescent mental health services, CAMS. But that isn't enough. Last year we sought to provide 230,000 to CAMS and reduce waiting times from 9 to 12 months to 6 weeks. We want to do this again. And we also want to support those waiting for CAMS so they don't get worse while in limbo. We want to look at voluntary services to ensure people's waiting condition is improved, or at least doesn't worsen, whilst they wait for these referrals and services. And coupled with this, we are looking to develop public health initiatives to help improve mental resilience and well-being. Along with individual resilience, we want to provide a better service from our staff. They already provide a good, often excellent service to the people of Wokingham, but they must not be afraid of wanting to improve. One way to enable staff is through training, and we want to provide all frontliners with professionals, especially those working in schools and social services, with good, appropriate, targeted training in both mental health and disability issues. Again, for professionals and the general public, we want to ensure there's a method for the WBC website to be kept updated to show current information.
Councillor Hare, you're out of time.
On voluntary services available. We want adult care to be well funded and produce an excellent service for all the people of Wokingham when they need it.
Thank you very much. Do you have a point of order?
Not a point of order, Mr. Mayor. I don't know how many speakers are left to call, but may I, under Standing Order 421311G, propose that this item is extended by half an hour, if that is necessary.
you very much. Yes. Did we take a vote on that? I think, yes, we do need to take a vote on that. Those in favour of extending this, should it be necessary? I'm sorry, seconded by John Hawes. Yeah, those in favour of extending if necessary. I think that's fairly unanimous. Thank you very much. Councillor Stephen Conway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I welcome some aspects of this budget. I welcome, of course, the money for Twyford Library. I've been campaigning for a new library for more years than I care to remember, and I want to thank the current leader of council for including me in discussions on how to deliver a new library after my return to the council last May. The increase in children's services budget is also welcome. This has been an area under-resourced in the past, and it's good to see steps being taken now to begin to remedy that. We likewise support, with some reservations, as we've heard about, double counting the initial measures in response to the climate emergency. We can live with this budget, despite our concerns about the deliverability of parts of the capital programme. Not least because if we inherit it, we can move money around to reflect our priorities. And we might well want to do that, because as my colleagues have explained, our priorities are not always the same as the priorities of the ruling group. If there is a change of control in May, residents will soon notice a difference, both in tone and in substance. We will listen rather than ignore. We will work cross-party whenever possible, drawing on all the talents in this council chamber. We will treat each town and parish as equally important. We will address the poor air quality that threatens the health of our residents. We will seek to ensure that new housing is driven by local need, not developers' profits. We will offer more help to carers and invest in preventative measures to save money in the longer term. We will make the borough a centre for the arts and culture. We will introduce more ethical investment policies for the council. The time has come for a change, and we look forward to delivering it.
Thank you very much. I believe that we have allowed each person who indicated to speak. If we missed anybody, could they just show? Councillor Kaiser, you did speak. You replied as a seconder.
Trouble is, Mr. Mayor, I've got so many jobs. I wanted to talk about another one of them. I wanted to talk about housing, actually.
No. I've been advised that that's not possible, Councillor Kaiser. Sorry about that.
I just think housing's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask John Horsell, do you wish to now come back and make any comments?
Right to reply.
Yes, sir, thank you. How long have I got? Wokingham Borough is committed to supporting affordable homes across the borough. We saw 400 affordable homes built last year, and to this end we will be looking to deliver 1,000 homes in 4 years, which will be in addition to those homes delivered by developers under their Section 106 obligations. This will also include social homes, and we are currently looking at the feasibility to increasing the borrowing levels in the ring-fenced housing revenue account to deliver additional social homes. The impact of homelessness can be devastating for individuals and families. Homelessness can affect everything: health, education, and employment. Homelessness can have long-term consequences for those affected. Tackling homelessness and reducing rough sleeping are a key concern for the Council. Wokingham Borough Council is committed to fighting homelessness and rough sleeping. The Council adopted a new strategy to tackle homelessness and rough sleeping in the borough at the Council meeting last month. The strategy includes early intervention and prevention, working towards ending rough sleeping and tackling hidden homelessness. The strategy, this will not be achieved by manipulating or changing the qualification or allocations policy, quite the opposite. In fact, I've asked the officers to ensure we look at the qualification criteria to reflect the increase we are seeing in single persons homelessness. Even if we cannot achieve this objective, that we will be providing more affordable and social housing for the residents. In the first instance, the new programme will provide a holistic first line of support to rough sleepers, with outreach workers on the streets to identify rough sleepers and provide them with accommodation where appropriate, signposting access to health professionals, benefit advisors, any necessary drug alcohol dependency support. The outreach workers will provide links to the next level of support. The Council will work with voluntary sector partner with expertise in tackling rough sleeping to partner on this project. The new service will build on the excellent work being carried out by the voluntary sector partners and other organisations. Further support for rough sleepers in the borough is the pilot of a night shelter running in January and February. The shelter being run by Pilgrim Hearts is accessed through the Council's housing team and other organisations. Working by the Borough Council is set to approve a people's budget here tonight. The focus is our spending on the things that matter most to our residents, such as protecting our environment, cutting congestion and taking care of the vulnerable and affordable. And decent homes provision will be a central part of the vision this budget supports. So whilst I have a last moment, I think some people need to look at the budget that we presented. There's a whole load of things which will be included if there is change of control, which is actually included already. Thank you. I commend this budget to the Council.
Thank you very much. We have finished within the allocated time, so therefore there is no need for an extension. So thank you very much for that. We now come to the vote. Voting will be on the various reports, and there are 4. So the first 3 will be by a show of hands, but obviously the last, which is the medium-term financial plan, will be a recorded vote. So on the first item, housing revenue account budget, all those in favour, would you please show? Those against? Do you want to do a count? No. Those against? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 against. 4 against. Thank you. Yep. That's carried. Item 2, capital programme and strategy, 2020-2023. Those in favour, please show. Those against? Should have asked before, are there any abstentions? No. No, thank you. That's carried. That's carried, yes, sorry. And item, next item, Treasury Management Strategy 2020-2023. Sorry. What's there? Right. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Yes. Yes, what you're voting on includes the recommendations or amendments on the attached sheets. You're fully aware and you're voting on that. Everybody else is quite happy with that, yes? Treasury Management Strategy, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we need a recorded vote. So can I ask those 4, so, sorry, we'll go around the room. Yeah. Would you like to call the names? Alphabetically.
Absolutely. 4 against or abstention. Baker. 4. Bath.
4.
Bishop Firth.
Against.
Blumenthal. 4. Bowring. 4. Boyt.
Against.
Bray. Against. Burgess.
Against.
Cheng. 4. Clark. 4. Conway. Against. Cowan.
4.
Croy. Delinsky.
For.
Duran.
Against.
Ferris.
Against.
Firminger.
For.
Fishwick.
Against.
Frowen.
Abstain.
G. Granderson.
For.
Haytham Taylor. Halsall. Hare.
Against.
Hobbs. Jones.
Against.
Jorgensen. Kaiser. Kerr.
Against.
Louise. Mahir.
Against.
Mather.
Against.
Mile.
For.
Mickleby.
Against.
Monroe.
For.
Murray.
For.
Patman.
For.
Richards.
For.
Imogen Shepherd de Bay.
Against.
Rochelle Shepherd de Bay.
Against.
Caroline Smith. Wayne Smith.
For.
Soane.
For.
Swaddle. Weeks.
For.
Whittle.
For.
That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we come on to next item, the medium-term financial plan, and again, this is a recorded vote with the amendment again, which you...
So that it's with the amendments
Yes,
tabled.
yes. Yeah, this one again is with the amendment that's been tabled. Everybody's quite clear on that? Okay, we go again.
So 4 against or abstention. Baker.
For.
Bath.
For.
Bishop Firth. Blumenthal. Bowring. Boyt.
Against.
Bray. Burgess.
Against.
Cheng. Clark. Conway. Cowan.
For.
Croy.
Against.
Delinsky.
For.
Duran.
Against.
Ferris.
For.
Firminger.
For.
Fishwick. Frowen.
For.
G. Granderson.
For.
Haytham Taylor. Halsall.
For.
Hare.
For.
Hobbs. Jones. Jorgensen. Kaiser. Kerr.
For.
Loyes. Mahir. Mather. Mile. Mickleby. Monroe. Murray. Patman. Richards. Imogen Shepherd de Bay. Rochelle Shepherd de Bay. Caroline Smith. Wayne Smith. Soane.
For.
Swaddle. Weeks. Whittle.
Carried.
That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. We come on to the Community Vision and Corporate Delivery Plan. This is proposed by Councillor John Halsall, and I believe we have a seconder. Seconded by Councillor John Kaiser. Councillor John Halsall, you have 3 minutes to present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our community vision sets out what we will focus on over the next 4 years to improve the outcomes for our residents. We will strive to work together with our residents and our partners to address and improve what really matters, to ensure that Wokingham remains a great place to live, learn, work and grow, and a great place to do business. Our mission is to keep our residents safe, secure and happy, and to provide the best service we can. Indeed, we have no higher purpose than to serve our residents. I'm very proud to lead the Council and its terrific team of officers and councillors to do inspirational things such as tackling the climate emergency, challenging traffic congestion and fighting unplanned building development. We've been and will continue to be ambitious and innovative. Our residents tell us that they're most concerned about the impact of development on communities and that some people face challenges with finding an affordable home. People also tell us of their frustrations with traffic delays and disruptions around the borough. Hence, within this delivery plan, we have identified what we can do to ensure the right homes in the right places and that we can keep the borough moving. Residents also agree with the importance of protecting our vulnerable people to ensure safe and strong communities and for Woking Borough to offer good leisure opportunities for children and adults, as well as excellent education, so that we support our residents to lead happy, healthy, enriching lives. The impact of climate change is a pressing concern both globally and locally, and we are committed to playing as full a role as possible to achieve a carbon-neutral borough, so that we can live and enjoy a clean and green borough now and for future generations. To achieve these ambitions, we will continue to improve and change the way we work, putting our residents and businesses at the heart of what we do, building resilience in our organisation and our communities. The corporate delivery plan identifies our ambitions to be the best we can, and the steps we will take to nurture and develop colleagues across our organisation to realise these ambitions within the budget available. We want to improve outcomes for our residents by delivering these strategic priorities with our partners. Despite the challenges we face, we are ambitious, committed to and passionate about delivering improvements, striving for excellence and efficient services. The corporate delivery plan sets out what we want to do for each strategic priority, what we will do to get there and what success will look like. The plan will be monitored and corporate performance measures will be identified to track our progress in delivering these strategic objectives. And I commend the recommendation to the Council. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kaiser, do you wish to speak now or would you reserve?
Reserve, please.
Thank you very much. Right. Can anybody else who wishes to speak please indicate, please? Right. Thank you very much. I'll call on Councillor Michelle Shepherd-Dubay, please.
I do feel that this particular vision is so vague and so indistinct that possibly a visit to Specsavers might be helpful for whoever did this. There are all sorts of pretty pictures, short, snappy words, but how will you achieve these aims and how will you measure them? Once again, real vague. For instance, you speak about declaring a climate emergency, then talk about rolling out green energy, but without any details, when and where. It's all vague. There is another aim of planting 250,000 trees in the borough. What size, where, when? You're talking about spending $14 million on alternative transport. What in the world does alternative transport actually mean? Also on greenways, park and ride, byways, and I would like to see how much for each and when they'll be built. I say this because, as my colleague mentioned, the Winnish Relief Road was scheduled to be completed by 2018. It's now 2020 and it's still mostly grass and mud. You talk about numbers, 37 million on carbon dioxide reduction, managing congestion, clean renewable energy and recycling. How? Proof of success would be residents feel safe and secure in the neighborhoods and services they receive. How in the world will you measure that? How do you measure insecurity or security? You mentioned an approvable and deliverable master plan for self-sustaining garden town of Graiseley, but this has not come to planning and the local plan hasn't been approved yet. So how in the world can you put this before it's actually gone anyplace? You state an example of success as well-maintained road network and improving safety for all road users. How? You only resurface certain roads, and the surfaces are designed for about 20 years, but many of them don't get resurfaced for 70 years. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work together. And how will you ensure the increased use of public transport when there's little money for bus subsidies and we don't own a bus company? These are all very, very vague. There is no actual answers for any of these. It's very nice to see these nice things, but unless you're doing a buzzword bingo contest. It's about the only reason I can actually see having this vision anyplace. Please go to Specsavers.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gary Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Overall, I think the document is excellent and it has my full support. But there are issues that crop up in council documents from time to time. And examples are work with our partners. I see this quite often in council documentation, but not work with our residents. I think it's very important. And this crops up within the provision of medical facilities on all our new housing developments. We work with our partners, and our partners don't want to provide medical facilities on these developments. So we work with our partners, not our residents. I think it's a point that needs to be picked up. The same applies to protecting our green spaces and trees. Yet, when I attend planning meetings, I find that planning applications that are approved for the building of buildings trump trees with TPOs on them. And these are the type of areas, I think, where we need to be more specific, and that we should be doing everything possible to A, work with our residents, and B, protect our environment. And overall, I do support the document because I think it's very positively going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andy Croy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We actually looked at this document last night in overview and scrutiny management, and in that, I won't go over the whole conversation because we spent about half an hour on it. In that conversation, Prue gave a very excellent account of what was wrong with the plan, and I was hoping that she was going to stand up and give the same speech today, and I could say, I agree with Prue. She's not done that, unfortunately, but there's still a chance at the end. But whatever Prue says on this, I agree with it. I would, within reason. And at the end of that meeting, Susan Parsonage gave a good account of why the employees and officers of the council need a sense of direction and a sense of purpose. And that was very persuasive and very powerful. And I didn't get a chance to say thank you for that, Susan, but I really appreciated that. I'm just going to focus then on one part of this plan. And it's one of the reasons we're going to be voting against it. One of the things residents hate about the council is they think we don't listen. We might spend £50,000 or £60,000 on a fake consultation that we already know the answer to. We don't want more houses. We might do that, but the rest of the time we have the impression that we don't listen. At the moment, the local plan update is out for consultation. But here on page 175, it says really, really clearly, and I'm surprised looking at this, that Gary backs the plan. It says very clearly that what success will look like is an approved and deliverable master plan for a self-sustaining garden town at Graiseley. So if you vote for this plan, okay, you are effectively giving a green light to Graiseley because it will come back in future meetings. You voted for it in the plan, you voted for Graiseley in the plan. Okay, so the councillors who claim to represent the rural communities really need to look at this carefully. And residents will hate it. They will see it as we've already decided. We can't do that. If you were to bring this back after the local plan update, or to take this line out, it would be different. But for this one reason alone, none of us, if we want residents to take us seriously as a listening council, should be voting for this plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rachel Bishop-Thirth, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The officers of this council and the other workers who care for vulnerable residents, keep our streets clean and maintain our roads and parks do a fantastic job. The community vision reflects the value which they add to lives across the borough as they deliver the best which they possibly can with very limited resources. The corporate delivery plan includes much that we will all agree with. It recognises the challenges that the borough faces and sets ambitious targets: increased educational attainment, affordable housing for those in priority need, and so on. I have a real concern, though, about how these aims will be realised. Let me pick two examples. The plan talks about tackling antisocial behaviour, but there's no commitment to providing the police and the youth workers needed to deliver a real improvement. The Liberal Democrats are currently campaigning for the police station in Wokingham's town centre to be reopened and an increase in officers working in the town. Without this kind of practical, real-life improvement, nothing will change. Secondly, the plan acknowledges that there's been an increase in the number of children and young people seeking support for mental health issues. The waiting list for a child or young person who needs an assessment for a mental health problem is currently 9 to 12 months. This is absolutely unacceptable. Where is the real plan to address this crisis? The Liberal Democrats proposed last year that we should provide enough funding for this waiting list to be cut to a maximum of 6 weeks. This was voted down by the Conservatives. This document needs to be revisited and turned into a real plan which can be delivered. I also need to add my voice to those asking why the plan for Newtown and Graiseley has been included as an aim before the local plan update consultation has been finalised.
Sorry, point of order. Can I ask Councillor Horsell? Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Rachel. Is Graiseley a foregone conclusion? And finally, the plan's equalities impact assessment is wishful thinking. Without providing any evidence, it tells us that the impact is likely to be positive in the areas of religion, sexual orientation and even gender reassignment. Let's look at making real improvements within our community. Last year, John Halsall committed to supporting a Wokingham LGBT Pride event. John, I'll be calling on you to make good on that promise, and I'll be in touch to see what we can do.
Councillor Horsell.
I freely admit that I probably did, so I shall be there. I'd like to propose amendments, sir. It is a mistake that we have an approved deliverable master plan for self-sustaining gardens town at Graiseley. It is inappropriate. It would be possibly predetermination anyway, and I would like to propose an amendment that is taken out.
So just to be removed?
That line will be removed, yes.
Second by Councillor Cowan. Those in favour of that amendment being made? That's unanimous, so that's fine. Thank you very much. We now have Jim Fruin. Councillor Jim Fruin, please.
I too was at the overview and scrutiny meeting last night and was pleased to have the opportunity to go through this in detail. There are some very, very good aspirational views in here, aims that we should be trying to do. However, if you read this with a resident's eyes on, and I said this last night and I repeat it tonight, it could be seen as a look at how good we are. I don't think yet, though I can understand we're getting towards that being perfect in this room. I think that how we position this has to be careful. We've got some aspirations to improve, but we should start off with we haven't quite got it right yet.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Councillor Horsell if he wishes to come back? Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Miss Prue. Sorry, Prue.
Sorry, I realise I'm a late edition. After Andy's invitation to speak, I thought I'd better say something. My problem with this is not that we're doing it, because I think it is an important thing to do. What I said last night at Overview and Scrutiny, and one thing I didn't say but others said, which hasn't been said tonight, which is what a shame that it came to Overview and Scrutiny the night before it goes to Council with no time to actually do anything to it. And we might have avoided having that Graiseley line in here tonight if we'd actually had a bit more gap. So that's something to think about for the future. What I actually said was, I don't have a problem with a corporate plan that isn't exactly the same priorities as Liberal Democrats would have, because the Conservatives are the ruling group. It's their role to put their vision in there. There's a lot in there we do agree with, as Rachel said, but it's not a plan. That's my biggest problem with it. It's actually a set of strategic aims and objectives, and the plan is yet to come. And I think I would be much more content with it if you actually called it that rather than a plan, because there's no way of navigating anything in there. There's no timescales, there's no key indicators, there's no Gantt charts, there's no project plans, there's no money. So that's my chief difficulty with it. My main difficulty is with the community vision. And again, part of it is the word community, because it's actually a council vision. And if you read it, everything in it is something that the council has either done or is going to do, and not anything that the community has done or is going to do, or any of our partners have done, or any residents have done. So if you called it a council vision, far less problem with it. But actually, the main problem with it is the tone. And Councillor Fruin has already alluded to this. This is the sort of document, and I'm pretty sure this is what I said last night, Andy, so you can agree with me again afterwards. This is the tone of document that residents find absolutely infuriating, because it is a puff piece for the council, and it has no resemblance to their experience of life when they're out driving around. All they see around the place is houses being built on green spaces, roads congested. You know, we've got people using feed banks, they can't get an appointment at their GP. On and on and on. I won't use up all my entire 3 minutes on that, which I did last night. And what you get here is a thing that says, let's congratulate ourselves on all these lovely things we've done, and doesn't acknowledge reality. So it's the tone that's wrong. Change the tone and you'll be much better off. Change it from a community vision to a council vision, and change it from a plan to a strategy, and I'd have no problem with it at all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kaiser, as a seconder, do you wish to speak now?
Yes, I mean, clearly says on it, this is Woking Borough Community Vision on the front page. I came to this council 12 years ago. We hadn't built a new road in this council for 35 years. We hadn't built a new secondary school in this council for 20 years. Since I've been here at this council, we built 5 to 7, we've got 7 major roads we're delivering. We've delivered at least 1 new secondary school. And why did we do that? Because when I joined here, the leader had a vision. You must have visions. If you don't have visions, you can never turn them into reality. And to think you're going to sit here and design what people want today is impossible. You have to look at what you're doing, you have to look at what you've got to deal with, and you also look at how much money you've got to deal with. And I agree, we are underfunded. We are underfunded, and we recognise that. And for years, the Conservative Association here has been saying we are the lowest funded council in the country. But we must have a vision, and you must have a vision. If you don't have that vision, I just don't know where you go.
Thank you very much. Councillor John Halsall, would you like to reply?
So I would like to commend this to these 2 documents to the council. I'd just like to emphasise the purpose of having a vision. The 3-year financial plan has to happen through an envelope. If you don't have the envelope and you don't know where you're going and what you're trying to do, there's no point in trying to plot it with minute detail, which is what has been suggested. It is pointless. We're trying to give a vision of what we're trying to do. And central to the vision is to provide the best service we possibly can to our residents. I point you to the sentence, we have no higher purpose than to serve our residents. I hope everybody agrees with that, because that's central to what the vision is. And our mission is to keep our residents safe, secure and happy, and to provide the best services for them. I hope everybody can agree with that. Otherwise, why are you here? It shouldn't be an exercise in self-importance. We are only here to provide the best service for our residents, and we have no higher purpose than to serve our residents. And therefore, I commend these 2 papers to the council.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. It's time to vote on this, and we're voting on the... Okay, thank you very much.
There's been, at least 2 of us have presented some visions tonight, and I think that there are things that we can agree with and things that we don't. But Prue's comments just now about the tone of it is really an important issue.
Thank you very much.
If there is a change, we'll change it.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going for a recorded vote, and I will just remind you that this is, you're voting on this proposal, and was put by the proposer and amended by the proposer. So we're voting on the amended proposal. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, can you call?
So 4 against or abstention. Baker. Bath.
4.
Bishop. Blumenthal. Bowring. Boyd.
Against.
Bray. Burgess.
Against.
Cheng. Clark. Conway. Cowan.
4.
Croy. Delinsky. Duran. Ferris. Firmiger. Fishwick. Fruin.
Against.
G. Granderson. Haytham Taylor. Holsall. Hare. Hobbs. Jones. Jorgensen. Kaiser. Kerr.
Against.
Loys. Maher. Mather. Mile. Mickleborough. Monroe. Murray. Patman. Richards. Imogen Shepherd de Bay. Rochelle Shepherd de Bay. Caroline Smith. Wayne Smith. Soane.
4.
Swaddle. Weeks. Whittle.
Proposed by Councillor John Kaiser and I believe seconded by Councillor John Halsall. Okay, would you like to propose the...
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what we're basing our budget on, because it's a mid-year report on our Treasury outturn. In accordance, with the updated strategy set by the Council in February 2019, the Council has taken advantage of the permission to increase the investment duration with other local authorities up to 2 years. That's basically where we have balances that we're not using and we invest a relatively small rates of interest with other councils. It's safe, they're backed by the government, even the councils get into trouble, they will continue to be backed by the government. So it's safe investment as far as we're concerned. And as of September 2019, the council had earned 1.866 million in interest. And the council's treasury team forecast for a full year an accrued income of 4,000,024 against the budget of 3.634. I think when you think of what interest rates are like today, that's quite an outstanding performance by our officers in the Treasury Department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, would the seconder like to speak now or would you like to reserve?
I reserve my position, sir.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this? Very quiet. No, nobody? No? Sorry. Okay, we come back to you, John. Thank you very much.
Having reserved my position, I'd just like to say I support it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay. We now invite the members to... Oh, sorry, yes, John, you do get the right to reply.
Thank you, John.
Okay, we now come to the vote on the report. Can I have a show of hands for all those in favour? Well, that looks pretty unanimous, doesn't it? Yep, I think everybody, that's a unanimous vote, so therefore that is carried. Thank you very much. I don't think there was anybody against, just for the record, was there? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. Well, we've come to the end of the meeting and we've done it within our time slot, so thank you very much. And I would like to say thank you for all those who kept within your time limits. Sorry. Thank you very much.